Hey, I'm Veronica from UXPressia. Let me briefly introduce you to what we at UXPressia do. UXPressia is an online platform where you can build customer journey maps, impact maps, and personas for your organization. With more than 100 ready-to-use templates, you can speed up your persona creation and mapping processes. To help you build confidence on your journey and learn from other practitioners, we host community events on user, customer, employee experience, and all things journey mapping. Our speakers are industry experts that are willing to share their knowledge to help you design and build better products and services. We also speak at the events ourselves and share tips and tricks we learned through years of practice and numerous interviews with other mappers. On top of that, we have UXPressia Academy, where you can dive into learning how to build journey maps, personas, and conduct interviews. And do that all at your own pace. Don't forget to check it out and enjoy the event.
Okay, welcome everybody. Again, thank you. We are not so many people here so that it will interrupt me. So whenever you have a question, type it into the chat. I'll try my best to pick up the questions also while I present. And if you feel more comfortable just asking the question using voice, you can raise the hands. And again, don't be afraid to interrupt me. I don't think I will be that much distracted. So I start with introducing my small team. I'm actually from Kiev and I'm in Kiev now, and our team is now, for the obvious reason, is spread across the globe. We are not all in Kiev now, but we are a small team working with the big businesses. We do customer experience, service design, sort of things. I don't think many logos on this are familiar to you, except maybe very few, but they are mostly household names in Ukraine. So we work with the big business and market leaders across the industries. Actually, I learned about customer journey service design in 2015. So it's been some time since I started working in the field, and I will be happy to share my experience with you. I propose you share one more insight from you. So the question is, what do you personally feel is harder for you? Is it more about designing, or let's say mapping the journey, or do you feel the more difficult task is actually convincing your colleagues to get it done and get it implemented? Yeah, first, this is a very strange slide because I typically try to give a conclusion of my presentation early on so that you have an idea what I'm talking about. So I would think that two key insights I'm trying to convey to you. First, when you map the journey, it is very important to first narrow down the business challenge you are tackling with the journey map. And then after you have a very narrow challenge, expand your vision. So look broader from the customer perspective. Don't focus only on your service when you map the journey, but be very mindful and very focused on the challenge. I'll give some examples in the presentation. And then another one, which is, I know, quite controversial. If you are responsible for journey mapping, your client is your company, not your end user. Again, I know this is very controversial, but when you use journey map as the tool, think about your colleagues as your clients, not the end user. And but yes, of course, when mapping, you put their customers inside, but you focus on your colleagues as the client. That's a bit controversial, but again, I'll try to explain you why this is how I see the situation. Chris has a question, but I'm not sure I understand it. Is that business change will not happen at all? Okay, okay, maybe later. Sorry, I don't get so far. I don't want to pause at this moment. Okay, so I asked ChatGPT, everybody is playing with ChatGPT now, to provide me with the typical journey mapping project plan. So it's like we define the scope, then we collect some data, we identify the touch points, etc., etc. This is not actually the journey mapping process we typically follow in our practice because we are closer to the design thinking approach. So we would not do a journey mapping without interviewing customers, with doing some insights, and basically 2B customer journey map will be created only after we have some important insights from the clients, and probably we will not be showing it as the final presentation unless we prototyped it. But regardless whether you follow like the more classical, let's say, approach or design thinking method, all in all, I think we will face very similar challenges. And here I propose we play a bingo with you. I have a couple of typical journey mapping challenges in my mind, and I will be just telling you one by one. And I would ask you to put a plus in the chat every time you see the challenge that is familiar to you. And after you put plus in the chat for 3 times, just type bingo so I know that's okay, I scored some useful insight. Let's see if it really happens, if the challenges in Ukraine are the same as in other countries. So the typical challenges would be not in a specific order, that we made a nice customer journey, but while mapping it, we realized that, okay, we are the marketing, we mapped the journey and we realized that the problem is in the service or in the sales or via sales, and we identify the barriers in another function. And then basically your teammates from the other departments don't recognize that they need to do something about it. Another challenge is we actually start journey mapping, we form a nice team, we do the mapping, then we look at the resulting journey map and we realize that, okay, there is nothing new in this journey map. Everything we already knew before, there is nothing surprising and nothing to talk about. Another one, we make a very nice customer journey, bring it to the colleagues from the same departments. They are totally like us. We show them that there are opportunity areas there, but they say, okay, we are busy now, maybe later, let's put it into the backlog, ideally in 10 sprints from now. Guessing more plus is coming, so I guess I'm scoring something here. Okay, another one, very nice. You present your customer journey to your sponsor or your boss who actually asked you to do the customer journey mapping, and then she or he looks at it and says like, oh, but okay, very nice, thank you very much, but this is not what I was looking for. Do something else. Oh, I have the first bingo. Nice, nice. Thank you. Okay, another one. I saw it several times when, again, the team comes, says, okay, we are going to build a customer journey. They put awareness, then they put you buy, try, use, and then they turn to me and say like, okay, Oleg, this is another nice way to draw the sales funnel. What's the difference? I mean, like, are we going to do about it? Wow, we have one more bingo. Thank you. Okay, so, okay. They seem to be universal. I have a couple of things more. One is very unpleasant for the designer. You bring your colleagues a very nice customer journey. You propose, implement some solution. And they say, okay, but can you please build the business case for the implementation? And you're like, I'm not, because that's based on the qualitative data, etc., etc., etc. There is no bingo. But this is something I saw. One more bingo. So okay, I like it. I'm happy. I will be answering those challenges. One more. You build a very nice customer journey for the customer experience, thinking how to make smooth and effortless experience for the customer. But then your colleagues say, okay, this is very nice. This is all about customer experience. But what about sales? How much more sales we are going to have from your customer journey? We have some pluses here. This is another one from the different story. We have one more bingo, thank you. So midway the project, you build the team, you start journey mapping, you do something, you discuss, you come to the end of the project, but you see that more and more people actually get disengaged within the team, so they leave the team, and then the rest of the team feel like they are left, and their morale also fades. So in the end of the day, you're not sure whether the project comes to the end, because I mean, like, nobody is in the team anymore. This happens to me. It happened to me several times. Okay, I think this is the last one, but this also happened to me. Some people came to the customer journey mapping exercise. They mapped all the touch points, all the connections between them. But this is very nice picture, very structured, but it doesn't actually reveal anything about the empathy, about the customer, about how they feel. It's just a list of the touch points, and you don't know what to do about it and how to improve the experience with the list of the touch points. Okay, I think less pluses here. I was not sure whether I would include this one, but I decided to mention it because it also happened. Okay, so now you know that you are not alone. Many people experience the same challenges. And actually, I think what we did right now is that we identified a clear service gaps on the customer journey mapping journey. If you consider journey mapping as the internal service, and then we have a service gaps, and we need to tackle them. This is the typical challenge for the journey mapping manager. Actually, my experience shows that whatever customer journey you take, the most important stages of the journey would be before and after. Because typically the experience of the customer before service interaction and what they actually aim to do after the interaction with the service very much impacts the customer experience and their overall perception. And I think when we talk about journey mapping, it's all the same. So if we want to tackle the challenges that happen during the journey mapping exercise, we need to consider what happens before and after journey mapping. So the problem is that if we don't have enough focus on the specific challenge, or we didn't agree on the goals why we do the journey mapping, or we didn't invite all the relevant stakeholders because we don't like them, they are from the different department, etc., etc. So if we don't do a very good preparatory work before we started the journey mapping, we would have all the problems I mentioned now, and that sounds so much familiar to you. Would you agree? Do you think it's true, or there are other reasons as well? I would like to hear your opinion here before we move on and discuss what we can do. Sorry, I jumped. Okay, so let's see what we. Yes, yes, Chris.
How about does misalignment of the executive team play a role in the challenges faced here?
I think so.
Aligning with them.
Yeah, I mean, like if different stakeholders have different aims at mind when they map the journey, imagine the marketing manager thinks, oh, I need to find the good promo message because of this journey and identify the best channel and the best that ensuring the best conversion rate. And then sales guy thinks like, okay, I want to really warm contacts here. And then the customer success manager thinks like, okay, I want them to have the customer journey that will bring me the customers who don't hate our service so much because they overpromise and we underdeliver. So if there is no alignment at the beginning, then of course you cannot map one journey with different aims in mind. So yeah, that plays a role.
Right, because look at the end, lack of insights, lack of resources, siloed thinking, resource gaps, expectation gap. You know, it sounds like
that's again.
Yeah,
it's all the same. If from the very beginning marketing knew that they had zero new budget, so you would need to play in some guerrilla marketing with zero budget, then you should, as the journey manager, you should know in advance that you are not proposing, I don't know, some paid commercials on some media because it's not available. So if we know from the very beginning what would be the resources for the implementation, if we properly ask the stakeholders what would be our limitations, we would know what kind of journey we need to be mapping. So it might not be so much ideal, but that would be much more implementable. And again, this is actually an illustration of that we need to think about our colleagues as our primary clients, because the journey map should help them and empower them to serve the customers better. It's marketing, it's sales, it's customer service who is actually serving the client. It's not UX researcher or UX designer or service designer. Service designer is providing a service for the internal client. It took me quite some time to realize that I'm actually internal support function, like lawyers or accountants or HR. That was not something I liked because I always considered myself part of the business driving function. But once I realized that actually I'm supporting other functions to provide good customer experience and good sales, I started to do my job better because I now knew what are my leverages. Okay, so I would focus the rest of the presentations on the two challenges. So one challenge is actually being able to map the journey and discover the insights that are insightful and critical for the business. And here, as you remember, I would recommend on focusing on the very specific challenges. Oftentimes, when I saw some service designers, UX designers, marketing managers who want to do journey mapping, they would try to, I don't know, improve the world with the customer's journey map. So like very recently, I had a client, that's very surprising. Companies in Ukraine now in the middle of the war still do customer experience exercises, etc. So I had a client, a retail chain with 1,000 plus shops. They came to me saying like, Oleg, you are now an expert. Can you please help us to map the customer journey? And I asked them why, what's the reason behind it? They told, because we already tried once 3 years ago, nothing happened out of the exercise, but maybe you help us to do it better. And I asked them what was the challenge. Basically, I mean, like they are kind of a $1 shop, but a huge chain. And when they tried to map an existing experience of the existing client buying some stuff from their shelves, it's like, I come to the shop, it was not clean, I didn't find the good, nobody was able to consult me, and then there was a line at the checkout. They knew it already from their NPS survey many times. There is nothing specific in this journey, and it cannot be specific because it's very generic, like some customer come to our shop for some reason. Now think if we cannot narrow it down. And again, this is my experience. Let's imagine we are trying to expand the purchase of buying the household electronics. If you take it as a big challenge, that would be all the same. I mean, like, I go online, I compare prices, I go to the shop, I ask some advice. I might be getting good advice or bad advice, but it's very generic. You cannot improve the experience. And now consider if you take a specific scenario of helping the person to buy equipment for the new house. That narrows down the scope, but it makes it all very insightful, because then you realize that actually I'm buying a lot of equipment together because I have a new house. Then you realize that actually an architect will be choosing your household equipment before making a refurbishment, because they need to place everything in their places, especially if it's a built-in equipment. And then the person ideally would buy this equipment, at least in Ukraine, because you want to make sure it's available in a year time when the home repair happened, and then you need to place this built-in equipment into the furniture. So actually the service needed is a storage for a quite significant period of time, so that I can buy the equipment, make sure it exists, and then get it once I need it. And at the same time, together with buying an equipment, I will be probably overwhelmed with buying a lot of other stuff for my home. So I might not be so much attentive to the details in choosing the equipment just because I'm overwhelmed with the data. So making the journey kind of more specific and tailored to the specific scenario very much expands the insights. And then consider buying the same equipment because it's broken. I mean, I'm buying absolutely the same washing machine, but now because it started to leak. And then first, my customer journey starts with I'm inviting a serviceman who tells me my washing machine is broken. So the start of the journey is different. And actually this serviceman is a nice guy who could actually generate you more sales than context advertising. Then you realize that once I know that this machine has to be replaced, it's probably I'm already a week without the washing machine. So I need it desperately tomorrow. And the best service I need from the shop is you help me to get rid of the old one, because once you deliver me a new one, the old one just occupies my home, which is not always very big. So again, on one hand, we are reduce the scope of the project. So we just choose one scenario, and obviously there are more than two. But at the same time, the whole journey becomes very insightful. The insights become very actionable because it's a focus. And I can give you quickly another example. It comes from the other industry, and it's actually from the B2B. Again, imagine we are creating a loan for like a banking service, credit for the SMEs. It's again very broad. If you ask what kind of loan should be, okay, low discount rate, no collateral, simple paperwork, blah blah blah. It's all very nice and very generic. But now imagine we are doing a loan for the retailer. We know that small retailers actually need a loan to purchase goods. So there will be no collateral, but at the same time, the actual turnover of the money is a couple of days, because especially if it's a groceries, it's something you buy and sell quickly. So you understand that the actual interest rate can be any, because the sales margin is typically much bigger than the interest rate. So you understand that the person will be not so much interested in finding the best interest rate, but they might be interested in some other things. And at the same time, if you try to provide the loan for the farmer, let's say organic farmer, then you understand that probably the loan will be needed for some equipment. And actually, your biggest competitor is not another bank who is providing another loan, but the company who is providing an equipment for rent. So you understand that again, the scale of the competition is different, and you probably need to be very fast, because if I need an equipment and I can rent it easily for a limited period of time, I should be providing the loan even quicker. Otherwise, the person, when they need an equipment, will rent it, and I will never provide the loan. So again, you make it more specific, you choose the specific segment, and it helps you to discover the insights and the journey map and make it very, very actionable. So I think this is a very important trick. Yes, Barbara plays like choosing specific context or persona. Yeah, it's critical. I mean, building the journey for all our users, especially if you're multi-million user business, would not make sense. You need to be, I mean, you need to make customer journey actionable, you need to make many customer journeys. And of course, you start with the ones with the biggest number of customers, or with the biggest frequency of purchase, or the biggest volume, whatever you choose. Like, for example, in this household electronics example, we actually did a small survey, quantitative survey with the users to understand why they buy the equipment and which scenario is more frequent before we started to map them, so that we know that we are focusing on the biggest scenario. Do you have some questions here? I might reflect on something before I move on. Okay, then now treating colleagues as users. As you know, any service doesn't make any sense without the user. And if you start mapping the customer journey for your colleagues and they didn't ask you to do it, most likely there is no user. So when you bring the insights from your journey map that nobody asked you to map in the first hand, there is very little chance they will appreciate your work, just because this is the service without the user. So here, my advice is that you always remember your colleagues are busy. So when you bring them new insights and new action items from the customer journey, you increase their backlog. And I have never seen in my life a product owner who would come to me saying, hey, my backlog is empty. Please put something in it. It's always like, I have a huge backlog, help me prioritize. So my recommendation, and that's the most critical recommendation, you don't map the journey to bring new work to your colleagues. You go to their backlog, you look at what they are working at, and then you map the journey for the job they are already doing. In most of the cases, that's the most successful way to get your journeys implemented. You start with the features that are already in the backlog, and then you help them to make them better. Baron says that it's the first problem to define very accurately a persona. Yeah, that's, I mean, like building personas is a tricky challenge, though I like it very much. And then one more thing is that in any of your business, unless you are one-man person, one-man shop, any of your services is always cross-functional, just by definition, because the service is delivered by the company and different departments exist at the company, and every department exists by purpose. So I recommend first, as your sponsor, as your product manager who will be implementing your journey, to find the person who has a proven track record of implementing cross-functional projects. Because if your sponsor is a nice guy from the marketing who always struggle with convincing people from sales or service or logistics to make implementation, the same person will not implement your journey differently than anything else. So your user should be already experienced in implementing cross-functional projects. Because if your internal client has no capacity of implementing cross-functional projects, there is little chance of he will be succeeding in implementing it now if he was not successful before. This is one stuff. So you always remember it. So you choose the internal client properly. Otherwise, customer journey doesn't make sense. And then another one, how would you ideally engage with the stakeholders of your project? I really like job to be done approach here. So instead of asking your internal clients things like, what would you expect from this project? What do you like? What would you prefer? What are the limitations and resources, and blah, blah, blah. Most likely it's the same as asking customer, what do you want? And you know that this is the worst question in every user interview, because people tend to lie to themselves and you. So, I mean, like, it's all misleading. So instead of this, ask your potential clients, what did they do in the past 6 months? What kind of projects they are working on right now? Which one succeeded, which one failed, and why? And all those questions about past actually inform you about their priorities, their needs, their limitations. So you would know better. And of course, you need to engage with the potential critics of your projects early on, because if they are against customer journey in the beginning, they will be still against it after you finish it because they didn't approve. So you would need to sell the project even before you start. Otherwise, you will just postponing the problem for later. So the whole process of doing the first customer journey mapping exercises is quite controversial. I know it, but this is the way I learned to be the only working, at least for me. So I would start with finding an internal client. I'm not starting even with the task. I'm starting with the internal client who has a potential of having tasks that are worth mapping. Then from this client, I will pick the challenge in his or her backlog that is logically can be improved with the customer journey mapping, with the UX design, with the service design. So I start with the client, surprisingly. Then I pick the challenge from the client. Then from the challenge, I form the cross-functional team, including potential rejectors, because you want to engage them early on. And then you basically do the journey mapping exercise and get it implemented. Why is it like that? Because when internal client has the problem that they has to sell, it has a business case already. You don't need to make a business case for the customer journey because there is a business case for the challenge. When you need to motivate your stakeholders and when you need to motivate your team, you will not be talking about, hey, we need to make this customer journey mapping exercise. You will be telling, hey, there is a business challenge in the backlog that need to be implemented in 3 months. So this is the deadline. This is the type of project you do, etc. There is a good question here. What if you are working with the very green PM? PM, I guess, product manager here, right? Not a project manager.
Yes, product manager.
Yeah, I don't have good news for you. Until green product manager fails several times because they couldn't foresee the need of the customer, because what they built was rejected by the customer, etc. Until they mature a little bit, there is no chance they will appreciate the journey mapping exercise, because it's long, it's confusing, its value is not obvious, especially for the young managers who never failed before. So yeah, that's the sad truth. A lot of projects I potentially could have, they didn't happen because when the company comes to me, the first thing I ask is, who will be the product owner? And if there is no clear product owner, or if the product owner is not mature enough, I would reject the project because it will never lead to the success. So why even start it? So what you need to find, especially for your first journey mapping project, you need a self-confident and curious internal client. This is very important. You need a person who would say, I have a proven track record of implementing some significant stuff cross-functionally, and now I have a challenge which I don't know how to tackle. Because if there is a challenge, like, I don't know, you need to double the sales and you have a budget to double the number of the sales points, all you need to do is operations, open twice more shops than you have already. If you already know how to solve the challenge and you have all the resources, you don't need a journey mapping. You will just implement it as the product owner. So you need to find the person who at the same time is mature enough to appreciate your exercise, and then who is mature enough to say, this is the type of problem I never managed to solve before, so I probably need some more insights. And this is the not so frequent type of clients, but I never saw other type of clients succeeding in implementing customer journey. So that's why I always start from the client. Then with your client, you go to choose the challenge and the task you might be potential. I mean, like the one you want to tackle, the one in which you can actually bring extra value. But before this, of course, you need to understand your client's goals. And here, when you pick the challenge, you need to pick a narrow one, as I already explained. So, I mean, not like doubling the sales of all the electronics, but doubling the sales for the specific segment. Of course, you need to pick the challenge which is important for the business. Otherwise, nobody will be interested in helping you to tackle it. But at the same time, especially for the first project, you prefer to take the one which is not urgent. Because when you do journey mapping for the first time, a lot of things may potentially go wrong, especially for the first time. So you want to have a task which is important, but you don't have time pressure. So ideally, you would pick the challenge that is scheduled for the backlog or for the solution in a quarter or two from now. So you have enough time for the exercise. And yes, I would recommend picking the first challenges in sort of measurable afterwards. One of the first customer journey I was preparing in my career was actually for the telco. I was working in telecom company at that time, and we were implementing, I don't remember whether it was 3G or 4G, some new technology, faster broadband internet, but on the mobile. And we built a nice customer journey. We were like designing the whole onboarding process, how the customer would learn that there is a new technology, how they switch it in, how they actually understand that now it's faster, how they benefit from the better service, etc., etc. And we built a very nice customer journey, and customers were happy, and the process was smooth. But now I come and my colleagues ask me, but I mean, like, it's not your customer journey. It's engineers who change the antennas, it's marketing who changed the tariff, it's customer care who actually trained their staff. It's not about customer journey. And I cannot prove that my impact was significant because there is no comparison. But at the same telco company, we were redesigning the customer journey of using the roaming services. And the roaming services existed for years, and the pickup rate was very low. So most Ukrainians going abroad would never use roaming service even for a minute. And then we redesigned the journey. We didn't change the tariff, we didn't change the promotion, but we redesigned the way people learn about roaming and the communications they get, etc. And the usage increased several fold. And here I could clearly claim this is about the customer journey. This is about the service design, because no major changes were made to the service, but now it's used by far more customers. So that's the type of service you like, the one where you would have a baseline so you can demonstrate your impact. And I have some examples for you. I don't know whether I would need to go into details here, but again, from a lot of experience in different industries, there are typical challenges that are relevant to one industry or another. And they are the type of challenges when you can demonstrate your impact. So in service industries, I would first do the onboarding, because that's something where you typically can like double the conversion rate. Also, some service channels sometimes make use, because typically like 5 to 8 service type requests, service requests. I mean, like, again, sorry, 5-8 types of service requests provides the majority of load for your customer support. And oftentimes those customer requests, they are not useful to the customer and to the contact center agent. And I have an experience reducing them by half, just because you think through how to help customers not to have a problem in the first hand. So this is another type of requests that are useful in telco and banks. Speaking about retail, the biggest opportunity I saw is actually in commercial department. When you map the purchase scenario for the specific categories of goods, the only problem I have is that people who manage the categories are typically not very customer centric. So they are, majority of them, at least in Ukraine, are not fitting the expectations of the ideal client. But when they do, we managed to double sales in some categories in like 3 months. In a mature business with many million turnaround. So this is like the biggest potential. And then, of course, e-commerce and omni-channel is another opportunity area in retail when you can show the difference. And in B2B, again, onboarding is often the challenge that makes sense, and upsell, where you would actually help your sales manager to probably like significantly increase the deal, the ticket you get from the client. And of course, new products for the specific segments, like I mentioned about the loans for the SME. So in SME, new products, oftentimes, if you make for the specific segment, they are much better if you use journey mapping. Okay, and basically, after you have the challenge, after you have the sponsor, after you have a challenge that is important to the business, with the business case that exists even before you start the exercise, forming the team becomes easier because everybody understands that they are not taking part in some experiment, but actually in the meaningful exercise. I would recommend to limit the number of people engaged, because if people are more than 3, 5, 7 top, they become an unmanageable team, regardless how good they are and how engaged they are. And if you are not a very good facilitator, this is going to be difficult. Of course, you make it cross-functional, and again, keep your rejectors engaged. It's actually quite useful. Of course, you choose the people. You don't want some passive people taking part in the exercise, because, I mean, like, if they are passive, they will not be bringing any value. And one thing that I find very beneficial, if you manage somehow by luck, by effort, include some top manager into this journey mapping activity, that actually empowers the whole team, and it helps you to get resources at the implementation phase as well. I had an experience when 2 deputies of the board of the bank were part of the exercise. That project was moving very quickly. And actually it was, I mean, like, they were much more engaged, and actually much more open to the ideas, because they had a broad experience even like before becoming the board members. So that works. And in many projects, for example, we managed to convince our colleagues to conduct the actual user interviews. That's our like typical behavior. And that's very insightful. They may be not the best interviewers in the world, but the empathy develops very quickly, and that's helpful. So speaking about the stakeholders, yeah, my recommendation is definitely you engage them not only at the first and last stage of your project. I would recommend sharing with them the interviews, like, for example, ask the permission from the customer and give them several audio recordings to be able to hear. And of course, I would recommend presenting them insights, and actually on the same workshop, discuss the opportunity areas, because you don't want to learn that something you invented is way off their expectation. So I would recommend presenting insights, presenting some opportunities areas, because typically stakeholders, top managers don't appreciate only the insights. They just need help to do one step further. And then you give them a choice, like, hey, this is the insight, and these are 2 or 3 opportunity areas we can pursue. Which one do you like more, on which one you doubt in, so that they take part in the solution early on, that keep them engaged. And yes, when you do the prototyping, don't test it only with the users, don't test it with the stakeholders as well, so that they have a sense of what you are designing. And yeah, one more way to engage them at the end of the project is when you not only present the solution, but also some OKRs or KPIs or measurable things that you can measure in the future, so that we agree, for example, that the main KPI for this customer journey is the level of complaints or the NPS or the sales. And we agree all together that this is the primary goal of the customer journey, so there is no mismatch in the team. Chris asking, what's my opinion about creating hypothetical customer journey before interviewing customer? Chris, I am very much for it. I never tried a different path, that to put it very simple. So we always create a customer journey before the interview, so that we know what questions we want to ask for the customer. Typically, our customer journey is completely broken. Our hypothetical customer journey doesn't really look like the one that customers have, but still it's very valuable to prepare for the interview. I will probably repeat the stages again. I should have created this slide, but I didn't. So again, in terms of the journey mapping project, and this is the way I really recommend. Especially for the first project, find the client, start with the client. If you don't see anybody who would be a good client in your company, again, sorry to say about it, maybe you need another company where you would have a better client, or you should stop trying to impose customer journeys on them. Then from the client, you pick the actual challenge. Then you form the team for the challenge. And then with the team, you deliver the results and engage the stakeholder early, etc., etc. From my experience, there are two things where you might need an external support here. First is to be able to narrow the challenge. So out of we want to double the sales, focus on the specific segment or scenario or both. This is sometimes very difficult when you're inside the business, so you need an external view here. And then when talking to the internal client, help to prioritize the challenges which are suitable for the journey mapping. Because after you made your first 10 or 12 or 15, you know which sort of tasks will be improved by the customer journey and which ones are not. But this is again another place where you might want to ask for external support to help you to choose the first task here. I think that's basically the last slide, and I'm open for your questions if you have some. I appreciate the questions you had during the conversation, and I'm happy to answer some more if you have some.
Yeah, Oleg, thank you so much for sharing your experience. It is indeed time for the Q&A, and we indeed answered some questions already. And I'll give you some extra time to type any questions you have for Oleg in the chat. And while you're doing that, I would actually like to remind you that UXPressia is actually one of the solutions you can use to collaborate on journey mapping projects with your team and build data-rich and comprehensive journey maps. So if you'd like, you feel free to register or exploring it on your own, or actually sign up for a personal demo. Our team is always happy to highlight the functionality we have and that might suit your business case. Right, actually, Oleg, I have a question for you. You did mention bringing together the team and that sometimes it's indeed useful to bring in some external party. But I'm curious, if I do have just the internal team working on customer journey mapping and don't have any resources for employing someone from the external perspective, should the person, the product owner, the driver of the initiative, be the same person conducting and facilitating the journey mapping workshop, building the map? Should you wear two hats, or should you somehow split the responsibility here?
I mean, like, sorry, the always right but very unusual answer is it depends. It depends on the person who will be asking. I mean, if he or she is an experienced facilitator, and again, if she or he is a research-minded person who is eager to discover something new, that person might actually be good in mapping the journey. Otherwise, I still think that service design, customer journey mapping, customer experience, whatever you name it, is the competence itself. So if you have a person in the team who is competent in this specific area, he or she will do the work better than the product owner who is learning one more skill on top of team management, project management, backlog management, stakeholder management, whatever management the typical product owner already does. So she potentially can just we are one more head. It will be their 10th, but probably if you want to pursue a longer strategy and you plan to do a lot of customer journeys, you would better have a dedicated person for that. I mean, like I always use the analogy with the like a project manager or scrum master. Can a product owner be a scrum master or a project manager? Yes, he can. But will he appreciate some help? Probably yes.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you so much. All right, do let me know in the chat if we have any other questions.
I think we had one. Had an experience mapping.
Yeah, we have one from Barbara here. Barbara says, I've had an experience of mapping in order to show engineers or the business worked for other internal clients, but I've always had this idea that there are a few things engineers must do themselves to build knowledge. So the question is, how much API endpoint material was needed during your journey mapping experience, if any? Because I didn't know if it was a service design matter, but I wouldn't say no, you know?
The experience I have is actually sending engineers to what we typically call like express ethnography. You don't, I mean, like very stereotypical engineer who is like technical minded, very introvert, etc., etc. They have problem with conducting proper interview with customers. But if you equip them with a couple of questions, like 3-5 that they can easily ask, maybe not even person to person, but in the messenger, but to the specific person, that already broadens their view, because when they learn that many people have not engineering understanding of what they're designing, that's very insightful to them. That's something I would do. I mean, it's really context specific. You need to understand what are the type of challenges, what are the type of clients. Can you really help engineers to meet the clients? But do whatever you can so that they see normal people. By the way, I am engineer by my first degree, so kind of I have a right to say bad things about engineers.
Oleg, thank you. Barbara, let me know. Great. Thank you so much, Oleg.
If you want to see more events like this, make sure to check the upcoming ones at uxpressia.eventbrite.com or check the recordings we've got on this channel. Take care, and I will see you around.